Welcome back. This is Russia Part 2, the émigré poets of Russia who came to the United States for creative freedom, who needed to be not oppressed in order to grow as poets. That's a tough road, isn't it? And speaking of immigrants, I'm going to open the show with a poem prayer. It's a guy by the name of John O'Donohue. I've done this many times at this show to read one of his, he calls them blessings, but they're really poetry. He's a gifted poet. So, this is a dedication to the immigrants at our southern border, the children who have been kept in abject, deplorable conditions recently, caged in a cold, functional cell, far from the comfort of home, with none of your own things, in a place that is gray and grim, where sounds are seldom gentle. Amidst the shuffle of dumbed feet, the crossed word of lost voices, the one constant note is the dead, trap shut sound of unrelenting doors that make walls absolute. Though you have lost the outside world, may you discover the untold journey that awaits you in the inner world. May you come to recognize that though your body is imprisoned, no one can imprison your mind. And my thoughts are with all refugees and migrants in the world today, but especially at our southern border. I have a special gift to a very special guest who's here back for the second time, Russia 2. We did Russia 1 last month, and you were on every Monday night for 5 weeks, which was great. Welcome, Chase. It's so good to have you back.
It's good to be back.
Oh, thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Chase LeMay, Clinton guy.
Back in action. Back in action. Back home.
I have a very special gift. Wouldn't you know it? Part of this show is celebrating always the surprising synchronicity of things you and I noticed, and just the combinations of things that happen out of the blue. Supposedly, I was at the Clinton Library, and oh my goodness, what is this ancient text here? Oh my God, it's got a map, a pocket guide to the Soviet Union. What? 1932. From me to you, it even is moldy and has dust, and it's the real thing.
Well, that's incredible.
It's incredible. You know, they have that sale at the Clinton Library.
Printed in the USSR.
It was waiting for you.
I didn't. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. It couldn't be better. It's like, because in a year or two or three, when you get back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be fun to follow what this guidebook says?
From where it says, and comparisons from the then to now.
The then to now. So, Chase, this is the now. I am so impressed with your wonderful Gazeta, Ruskaya Gazeta.
Yeah, this was an interesting thing to bring home.
It's the now.
This is the very now. From the day after Putin was reelected.
Wow.
My friend bought this for me right before we left Moscow. And he said, I'm going to make sure that it doesn't fall down when I open it up.
Yeah.
I might do it anyways. It doesn't. Because, you could see in there, in that crowd.
And you were just on this side.
I was just to the right.
You could have been here.
I could have been immortalized on this piece of paper. But, I have it. It's one of my favorite souvenirs from Russia.
Yeah.
Because it's not, a trinket. This is part of history right here.
This is history.
Here.
18/3/2018.
So just past a year ago at this point.
Yeah.
But I will always remember those 3 days in Moscow.
3 days in Moscow. It happened. You're there, and he's elected.
Yeah, I got to watch live as they broadcast the results on the board. They'd show the percentages of the population who voted for Putin or all the opposition. And, from our point of view and being in that moment, we're saying, like, wow, it's unbelievable how many people voted for Putin.
And how many showed up.
And how many showed up. There were so many. There were a countless number of people there. The only thing comparable to like how many people there were attending were the number of police they had lining the roads for security because of the fact that Putin was there.
Of course.
If you were leaving the venue, you were walking down a street surrounded by cops, because it was history. It was
history. 3 days of history. Speaking of 3 days of history, that's the now. This is the then. This is my acne-faced portrait on front of the Current, April 17th, of course, because we flew back on April 15th. And guess who had just gone up in space? The first man, Yuri Gagarin. 3 days in history. I happened to be in Red Square with Fordham University's trip. What are all these people doing here? Come on, what's happening? May I read a couple of paragraphs?
Absolutely.
A 18-year-old East Hartford boy and his mother were in Moscow on the day that the Russian people learned that their astronaut Yuri Gagarin had orbited the Earth and returned to his native soil. Quote, "We couldn't understand the cheering and clapping in the heart of the Kremlin," I had said. "And when we went out into the streets, we were amazed. It was almost a national holiday. They must have known about it because such a celebration must have to be planned. The Bolshoi Moscow Ballet's theater was decorated beautifully with paper flowers and other buildings that had been painted for the day. Red Square was hung with red banners. I'll never forget that day, especially the Russians at the departure point, because that was the 15th, the parade happened. We were leaving that night. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And as we all boarded our bus in the middle of Red Square with 500,000 people maybe, Russians ran up to our windows in the bus, and one of them handed me exactly this, only from that day. Yuri Gagarin's picture was big and alive.
All in the front.
All in the front.
They celebrate.
And handing flowers through the window.
They are.
That was wonderful. So we're celebrating.
People.
Celebratory people is the word of the day. And we are celebrating the 4th of July. And we're celebrating Gay Pride Month. And speaking of parades, I'll be at the front of the New York City 50th Annual Gay Pride Parade, supporting my 93-year-old buddy from Guilford, who's the Boy Scout that got kicked out 20 years ago and has made national news. So he was invited to be at the head of the parade. Yeah. So he's 93 and he's failing. And it's like, but there's a car. We can jump in the car.
Yeah, but that's incredible.
That's something. That. And then we are celebrating summer solstice.
It's getting way too warm really quickly.
What are you celebrating today?
Today, personally, I'm celebrating a day of relaxation as well, and a day of preparation. Relaxation from a day of work where I'm happy to be working with kids now that I'm home for the summer. But it's a day of preparation as my grad party from school is on this upcoming Sunday. So relaxation, I guess, isn't the best word. It's more go home and set up everything and be ready. But
You're throwing the party.
Yeah, it's at our house. So
wonderful.
My parents have been working day in and day out. We've painted the house, we've planted gardens, or we're preparing everything because it's for my sister and I, and they've been absolutely just working to make it the best day it could possibly be. And I'm thankful, so that way I should probably go help them a bit more too.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
But you took time out to come here for part 2. I'm so grateful to you because this is so alive for me. You know,
I love this.
Here's your flag.
Baltica.
The Baltica. And it's just so redolent of Russia with the crown on the top. Of course, the 2 eagles in the Russian flag. There's the Russian flag. That's a well-known little cottage in Guilford, Madison at the dock there that I used for a cover on one of my books. And back then, so we'll go to the back, the then. This is all coming back. I wrote Russian Hours, and as I say here, appeared at the top of the front page of the next day's Hartford Courant. I was giddy with the blind, dumb good luck of the happening of being there, and suffering from a swelled ego, I should say throbbing ego at that point. It was so exciting. But I had written a poem in my notebook, and that somehow enabled me to recapture. The first sentence, my trip was bedbug and danger-free, although the walls in the old Metropole Hotel in Moscow were bugged. It was just after the debacle of Gary Powers that our group of, quote, religious pilgrims departed New York City on a KLM Constellation for the 20-hour journey.
Like, I mean, what if I could pick up the map for a moment? I don't think it's very... So from St. Petersburg to Moscow, such a short trip in our eyes, and looking at this map, on the fastest train that we had available to us today, took us over 5 hours. And that's just the distance of a thumbnail,
right,
in comparison to this map. But looking at the expanse of Russia, it really
Vladivostok is over here, 8 time zones.
I don't think it's very evident how large of a country it truly is. And so when we were traveling from Moscow to St. Petersburg, or the reverse, from St. Petersburg to Moscow, they told us we were on the fastest possible train that they had, and that it would still take over 5 hours. So we got to look at, the not so urban aspects of Russia for the first time, because most of our time was staying in St. Petersburg, one of the largest cities in Russia, with 5 million at least. But suddenly seeing, this short little gap between the two where it's just open area, snow covering trees, and we went right around sunset. We got to see the sun setting over the edge of the skyline with all the trees, and that was the first time we got to see what most of Russia more likely looks like, just wilderness for a while, or open fields once in a while.
But in many ways, Chase, a lot hasn't changed, right?
No. I would say that's where we got to see a glimpse of the towns or the regions that probably haven't changed in 50 or so years, where it's old houses, and we would see somewhat that were kept up and running with cars parked outside on a shoveled driveway, but some that had fallen to time, some that, caved in roofs from snow that had been abandoned for a while, apparently, and it was evident. And you'd be passing these, and they're just, shells of what they probably were, but they've probably stayed that way for quite some time.
Yeah, that was my impression then, although we flew, so I had no advantage to see the countryside. But certainly in Poland, when we took a bus, that was redolent of the past, everything primitive in a way. But in a sense, Russia's hinterlands are so, as you say, so far, and towns so few between.
Exactly.
Although we did take a train, did I mention last time from Lvov after we bussed down to Czestochowa, and then Lvov, which now is in the Ukraine, and we took a train from Lvov to Kiev.
Oh, I wanted to visit Kiev.
Oh, I don't think I mentioned that.
No.
And the train showed all the steppes and the distant farmlands and the waving wheat, the breadbasket, so-called. And it was just beautiful. I'm going to add a little anecdote story, which, is a funny synchronicity, too. You could lower the windows on those trains. So I'm hanging out the window.
Oh boy.
Did I mention this last time?
No. Were you just?
I'm leaning out, and of course the track is just filled with telephone poles. Bing, 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 they come. I had pulled my head in just seconds before
A connection would have been
I
made?
would have been decapitated. I mean, it's just crazy to think about that, but I realized at the moment what a crazy thing I had done.
The fact that that's even a feature that was. Oh yeah, no, I'm sure no one's gonna. Even when you're taking the car down the highway at this point, just how casually you can just stick your hand on, not even think about it.
Boom. Yeah.
By hand.
That'd be in a Shakespearean moment. Yorick, who was this guy?
Seems you're a bit excited.
Anyway, as you learn, you have to laugh about a lot of things that can
Possibilities. A lot of things that could be very scary are actually laughable in retrospect.
In retrospect, yeah. We're both here.
On the train, it's a different type of fear in that moment, or the realization of, oh, this could have been completely different. When we were coming back we took a little spring break type trip to Helsinki, and then to Tallinn, and then an overnight train trip back to Russia. Mm-hmm. And so during the train trip, as soon as we crossed the Russian border, there were agents that came through and checked all of our passports and checked everything. Uh-huh. So there were very official-looking agents checking all our passports. And they obviously then went through all the compartments. I happened to be with a couple of my roommates. I was with Neil and Philip, and since there were only three of us, we had the assistant director with us in our cabin. A man named John. He was fantastic. Loved him. But what happens is, after they'd passed through and checked all of our passports, then they'd realized that we were all Americans. Uh-huh. We had another man enter our cabin and asked to speak with him. He pulled our assistant director out and he said, "Can I speak with you?" He was wearing kind of a leather jacket and jeans, casual looking, with a lanyard around his neck or something. And he kind of looked like a newspaper reporter to me in that moment beforehand. So he and the man who requested him step out of the cabin and down, and presumably off the train to talk for a moment. We were sitting for a while at the entry point. And he came back in, our assistant director, and sat down, and the train started to move. And of course, we're all like, what was that?
Yeah.
What just happened? And he goes, we'll talk about it after. Yeah. And I was like, oh, cool stuff. Cool stuff. So we wait, and once we're like maybe 20 minutes or so back into our trip, we kept bugging him. We were like, come on, you can talk about it now. It's been a while. Tell us.
You're safe.
Yeah, we're safe. He says it was most likely an FSB agent.
Yes.
Who was investigating why we were out of the country, how long we were out of the country, how many people we left with, how many people coming back in, our intent in coming back, our purpose, where were we going to be. You had to go over all the details to make sure that once you leave and you're coming back in, what are you doing?
Really? That's
So,
problematic, yes.
He was scared to tell us that. And it makes sense from an internal standpoint why they would be investigating Americans crossing the border and coming back in over and over. Because, if we got into the country the first time, we should have been thankful as is.
That's got to be a red flag. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so, but just having that moment of us saying, like, tell us, like, explain what just happened. I can't tell you right now.
Intrigue.
I can't tell you. And the realization, like, if someone had done anything that was illegal in any way, coming back in, bringing in anything of question.
Collective guilt.
Anything.
Everybody.
Anyone could have been a suspect if a single person had done something wrong. And so that was the same realization of, could have been that was the closest we came to direct conflict, or not conflict, but contact, and there could have been potential issues with a federal agent from Russia. And we presume that it was FSB.
Yeah.
It could have been another agency, or someone from
jeans
lower
and
on.
leather, though.
It sounds casual, which scares me.
That's right. Yeah.
It scares me more. I'm more afraid of someone who comes up to me in plain clothes than in a full-blown suit.
Yeah, or official uniform.
Yeah.
Because that's what we had.
I'd be way more afraid of someone plain clothes who comes up to me random than someone who's in a full-blown uniform with their badge. Because that's, expected.
Well, FSB is the reincarnation of KGB.
Yes. Funny story about that too. Really
Good.
quick. One of the two classes that I took in Russia was
where?
In St. Petersburg. During my classes was political and cultural history of Russia.
Oh.
And so we had Professor Ilya, who's he was a funny guy, and he taught us a lot. I actually have all of our notes.
I love that box.
It's full of surprises, and
It's full of surprises.
Baltica. So this was where we took notes on, all of the political and cultural history. And so
Class notes?
One day we were talking about the KGB and the history of it, and the FSB and what its functions were. And we were talking primarily about the FSB for a class. And one day he accidentally said KGB, and we were like, "Oh, you meant the FSB." He goes, "There's no difference."
Oh,
and we're
really?
Like, okay.
That's
He goes,
strange.
and he said, in his words, he was like, "FSB, KGB, there is no difference." And I was like, "Okay."
KGB, by the way, Komitet Государственной Безопасности means without, Комитет Государственной Безопасности.
I must have written these down in here, and I wish that I had gone through and marked which pages could have been specifically about that. We learned, the ethnic factors, the transition from totalitarianism to democracy in Russia.
The Russian story really about the transition from autocracy to Soviet Union that's a long, long history. Speaking of history, let us open with a poem by a guy who wrote a lot of poems about Russian history and lived it. His name is Yosef Brodsky, and he is really the heir of Anna Akhmatova, who's the most famous 20th century Russian poet and biggest literary name, in a direct descendant from Pushkin, and he's the father of Russian poetry. So Akhmatova took Brodsky under her wing and mentored him, and she, of course, is one of the biggest names in Russian literature, all of Russian literature. But this guy says, I'm going to get out of here at 72. He couldn't take it anymore. They were persecuting him. They called him a parasite. They did a trial on him, and it was all trumped up, and it was really bad news. So He got out of there in 72, became a U.S. citizen in 76. Yeah, we took him in. We loved him. So some of the emigres who come to this country are Nobel Prize winners if you accept them, you know.
Yeah. And you said that he was writing in English by his end.
After he got here, 10 years, he says, I'm switching from my native Russian to English. So he got the Nobel Prize for his English work. Think of that. Think of moving from
to be able to transition from your native tongue.
Came in with mother's milk. It's your basic, and there's a whole discussion about that too. It's in your DNA. But then to transition to a new language and win a Nobel Prize, wow!
That's unbelievable. To even
that one is later, so it's originally in English.
The Ode to Concrete.
Ode to Concrete. Come on, what are you thinking?
Consistency and just so
yeah.
Read it?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Ode to Concrete. You'll outlast me, good old concrete, as I've outlasted, it seems, some men who have taken me too for a kind of street, citing color of eyes or mien. So I praise your inanimate, porous looks, not out of envy, but as the next of kin, less durable, plagued with loose joints, though still grateful to the architects. I applaud your humble, to be exact meaningless, origins, roar and screech, fully matched, however, by the abstract destination beyond my reach. It's not that nothing begets its kind, but that the future prefers to court a date that's resolutely blind and wrapped in a petrified long skirt.
Thank you, Chase. I heard the rhyme. So what the Russian poets continue to use are the formal elements of traditional poetry. Even in his transition into English, and you know, it's all free verse here.
Yeah.
He continued to rhyme, which is so Russian. It's in the bone.
It's in the classic poetry.
It's a marvelous, marvelous carryover. What a guy. He wrote many books. We're going to take a little break. And when we come back, we'll start with another Brodsky poem. And you got it there.
Yeah, I was
great.
Make sure I keep track of this.
We'll take a break. Come back. Have a beer or a little kvass, a vodka, pierogi.
Baltica? Some Baltica if you got.
Some Baltica, yeah. Vodka. Thank you.
Really? Buzz, what's up, man? You left some leaves burning out here.
Yeah, I just just came in just for a second.
Come on, man. If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. You could torch the whole neighborhood.
It's a good point there, Smokey.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Community TV, your neighborhood TV.
Publicly funded and a reliable partner for cable companies nationwide, it provides transparent coverage of local and state government, education, and public programming.
A digital town green that can be watched anywhere, anytime, and on any device.
Watch us on today's high-tech distribution methods.
Community TV in Connecticut.
Local,
unfiltered,
reliable, and yours.
They said I couldn't dream. Called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Take a look under your bed. Find stuff under there? What about jobs? No? Now try your closet. Still no jobs? Just more stuff? Well, you really have both. See, stuff is defined as household articles considered as a group. Sometimes this stuff is no longer needed. Wait, no longer needed? That can't be right. Because remember those jobs you were looking for? Those are really needed, and they're the stuff inside your stuff. Our job is to unlock those jobs, and it starts when you donate your stuff to your local Goodwill. Here's how we do it. When you donate to Goodwill, we sell your stuff to provide job training for people right here in your community. So just by teaming up with Goodwill, you help create jobs. And isn't that worth parting with the leftover keytar from your 80s cover band? Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs.
Welcome back. Thanks for coming back. I want to recognize the help we have in the studio. By the way, it's Chris Morgan's 6th year. Isn't that great? Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Max. Thank you, Brian. Brendan. And of course, Christy. So, then, Akhmatova's second book, Cherki Rosary, was by far her most popular. By the time the volume was published, she had become a favorite of the St. Petersburg literary beau monde and was reputed for her striking beauty and charismatic personality. She exuded an aura of mysterious charm and sadness that drew scores of admirers. Can you just imagine how beautiful? During these pre-war years between 1911 and 1915, the epicenter of St. Petersburg bohemian life, you mentioned bars, was the cabaret Brodyachaya Sabaka, the stray dog. By the way, Slavic pios sabaka, 2 words in Slavic for dog. Isn't that funny? Housed in an abandoned cellar of a wine shop in the Dashkov mansion on one of the central squares of the city, the artistic elite routinely gathered in the smoky cabaret to enjoy music, poetry readings, or the occasional improvised performance of a star ballet. Ah, the culture, huh? Russian culture. This is so cool. That's for you. That's the then. So Akhmatova says, "Dear Brodsky, I see your talent. You are a genius, like our Pushkin in 1800. You need to be free." They shut up Akhmatova for 20 years while Stalin said, "No more poetry." Imagine being a brilliant poet and have to shut up for 20 years. So Brodsky says, "Well, help me find a way out." Thank God. So he died in 96, heart problems, but he had from 76 to 96 in the United States, traveled as visiting professor at all the big universities, had poetry readings.
Being able to travel like that.
Up the wazoo. Oh.
I'm glad the universities realized like the opportunity.
They realized, man.
Sometimes, brilliant minds go unheard too frequently.
You know, you have to beat your drum, but they recognized. Give them the credit. You're absolutely right.
For culture and the streets, and I do have a funny story about the word sabaka as well.
Great. And then talk about the bars.
And then the culture. So for brief story, real quick. The short one to kick it off, funny with sabaka.
Sabaka.
As I said, I had a couple of roommates, 2 that spoke fluent, like near fluent Russian after studying for 2 years, and then myself and a friend of mine who are brand new to the language. So week 1, we were learning very simple words. Dog, cat, so we learned the word.
Bathroom.
And the word for thank you. So that's an important one. Spasiba is thank you.
Пожалуйста. Спасибо, спасибо. Пожалуйста,
And
спасибо.
so we also learned the word for dog, sabaka.
Sabaka.
So one day, as we were leaving our общежитие, our dorm, a woman held the door open for all of us, and we all walked through. And then at the end, we were like, we said spasibo, spasibo, spasibo. And my friend who was at the back, my friend at the back, who was new to the language as myself, he forgot the word for thank you. He got it switched up in his head.
Oh,
so
no.
he looks this woman dead in the eyes, smiles, and says, "Sabaka." And she goes,
Oh no! Oh, that's so
and
funny.
she was like, she looks so taken aback, and he was like, and so he kept walking, and he told us, and we were like, "It's spasiba."
Not
You just looked her in the
sabaka.
eyes, smiled, and called her a dog.
Doesn't get better than that.
No, we never let that
And
one
then you
go.
ran in?
Yeah, we never let that one
Oh, that's a
die.
good story, Chase.
Oh, and so when it comes to the nightlife in Russia now, it's a long night. It's a very long night. So we lived in the district Akademicheskaya, up in the top right of the city.
Ooh.
And the main bars were across the Neva, where the main part of the city was, the center. And so we would go, but the thing was, they don't start, going out and having their nightlife until 11 at night. But the metro, as I think I mentioned, closes at midnight. And it doesn't open until 6:30 in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
So if you go out, you're either home across the Neva before midnight, or you are stuck on the other side of the river
In the bar district.
in the bar district until 6:30 in the morning. You have the option during the winter to take. They have like the rideshare apps. They have Uber over there.
They do?
It's actually very cheap. It was so much cheaper over there than it was here.
Cool.
And so that was rough to come back to because I never had Uber before I was over there. So I was like, oh my goodness, so why didn't I use this more often at school and getting around?
I could stay out till 4 a.m.
I could stay out late and I don't need to drive anywhere. And then I got home and it was like 6 times the price.
Yeah.
We would pay like $10 for a 45-minute ride.
Ooh.
And it was incredible because here you can drive for 10 minutes and it costs you $28.
Don't you love that exchange rate?
Yeah.
I had no idea you had such a benefit from the exchange rate.
Oh, I don't even know if it was the exchange rate or if they just have if it was just the presence of Ubers and that they would have so many more for the city. I don't know, but that's why it was just very weird. So what would happen is during the winter you could technically take an Uber back and it would take you right across the bridge because the bridge was still down over the Neva. In the spring, however, once the water over the Neva had melted and the ice was, hope water's not melting. Once the ice had all melted and the river was flowing through under the bridge, they actually raised the bridge at night so that way ships can go through. And so what would happen is suddenly they would raise it at midnight and give them till morning. The bridge wouldn't go up and down, it would just stay up.
Wow.
So if you were across that bridge past midnight, the metro was closed and the bridge was up. You have no way back.
And if it's raining or snowing,
So you were out all night without a choice.
By the way, a little interruption. There's that statue of Peter the Great.
Oh yes.
And Pushkin's poem, Medny Sadnik, the Bronze Rider. He is up, elevated, and that is really the story of St. Petersburg, built on marshlands and flats and floodings.
That's why it's so low.
And it's like Venice, they call St. Petersburg Venice of the North because they had to build up. But did you see
The statues?
the statue?
I probably did.
You must have.
At some
it's
point.
elevated,
Must have.
and it's a French architect, and there's Peter the Great on a horse, super lifestyle.
Oh.
Yes.
Got it. Yep.
Medny Sadnik.
Yes. Oh, and it's only balanced on one point.
Yes. Yes.
And it was incredible seeing how they balanced the weight, and so that way it's a giant sculpture. balanced on a
Condorcet, I think, is
single
the French.
point.
Single point. The heavy weight on
Yeah.
a single point. The brilliance of that. what a city.
We
I
did that
still
on our bus
remember
tour at the beginning. That's why.
At the beginning.
Very
I still
beginning.
remember the beauty of the city. Oh, the Fontanka Bridge where Akhmatova lived. You know, I'm walking that street in 61. She lived until 66. So I imagine myself passing
the same
Akhmatova on the street. I was there.
Without knowing.
Without knowing. I was there. You know, feeling that. Yeah. So she says, Brodsky, you gotta perform. You've gotta find a way. So let's hear another Brodsky.
Nope.
Directly from Pushkin through Akhmatova and
sounds of poetry.
all the 30s poets.
Their arts are just, their literature, unmatched.
World class.
So, at the city dump in Nantucket,
I love this one. This is like my favorite.
Stephen
At the city dump in Nantucket, why would a poet
choose
choose concrete and a city dump?
art in the smallest
Art.
places. The perishable devours the perishable in broad daylight. More abundant its turn in late November. The seagulls trashing the dump are trying to outnumber the snow, or have it at least delayed. The reckless primordial alphabet, savaging every which way the oxygen wall, constitutes a preface to the anarchy of the refuse.
Refuse, yeah.
In the beginning, there was a screech. In their stammering W's, one reads not hunger, but the prurience of comma-sharp talons toward what outlasts them, or else a torn-out page's flight from the volume's fat. While some mad anometer giddily spins its cups like a haywire tea ceremony,
Yeah.
and the Atlantic is breasting grimly with its athletic swells the darkening overcast.
Brilliant. Thank you for reading. That's so powerful as a poem. Because, again,
Picking that imagery, that
imagery, man.
having what we would see to be, or passing the dump, and picking out the artistic, the curve of the talons, or
Yeah.
the flocking in an attempt to outnumber, to overcome. It's
The brilliance of that.
a certain mind. It takes
It's
a certain mind.
You read that well with a really good gusto, and I think I wish I had heard him read, but never had the opportunity. But that brings us right up to the present of the arts, which in a sense is universal, right? Doesn't it link the U.S. and Russia? I mean,
A brushstroke can be a brushstroke.
Wow.
And it doesn't have any language to it, really. I mean,
how beautiful. And tonal music and even atonal music in the moderns. The thing about Russian culture, though, is to me still the staying point for my acculturation of Russia. I mean, living with Stratford families and learning language and culture and food conversations really culminates in my deeper appreciation now at 77 and hanging out with Russian culture for 60 years is to look back and say, wow, that is such world class that how can we not take full cognizance and awareness of the gifts that the Russians have given the world in music, painting, art.
when we were over there, we happened to go to we tried to visit as many museums as possible.
It sounds it. So you were at the Ruski Museum.
Yes.
Good.
Where are you? Mm-hmm. I had brought a couple of tickets from places that I visited. So the Dostoevsky Museum.
Oh, bring up the box. You've got a treasure box here, man. We got a show and tell.
It's got really everything in it. Oops.
It has everything.
Plastic goes there. That's just from the Spravka.
Oh, thank you. Musée Fyodor Dostoevskoy. The Fyodor
I'm gonna
Dostoevsky
put it up
Museum.
against this.
Oh, and what
It's a bit back.
And what a beautiful, beautiful picture of Dostoevsky. You have treasures here. Oh.
The Ruski Museum, the Russian museum.
I was there. Ruski Museum. Oh, and these wonderful tickets. I mean, they're worth keeping.
I've kept every single memory. I tried to go through and find some of the best. The ticket to the Mikhailovsky Theater, where I'm pretty sure we must have seen, I couldn't remember the ballet last time.
Right.
But it must have been, it looks like Korsar would have been the show.
Oh, Corsair.
Corsair.
Yeah, he's sailing.
Yes.
Oh.
And so it must have been that.
How wonderful.
I couldn't remember the name of it
At the Mikhailovsky Theater in St. Petersburg. Corsair. That's a very famous ballet. I mean, it was wow. I'm so glad you brought that. That brings it up.
I was so annoyed that I couldn't remember for the life of me. I was like, I know I saw a ballet, and I know there was a lot going on.
Yeah, there was.
But, I just... So, the museums, I have to say, were some of my favorite things to visit because...
Why is that?
As someone, I hadn't really got to travel and see a lot of museums here. In Connecticut, we have Hartford, the Science Museum.
Yeah.
But for what big location for arts could you go?
First class arts. Yeah.
So this was my first chance to really get out and see international influence in art, and we would be doing it every other weekend.
Oh, that's great.
It was almost, to a degree, it was overwhelming.
It is overwhelming. I mean,
just the Hermitage alone.
The Hermitage alone, 3,000 whatever paintings or rooms. I still can't figure it out.
Unbelievable. And
spend
easy to get
months,
lost in. Yes.
months.
And so having that in a day.
Yeah.
I recently talked to a couple friends of family who are going to Russia in the upcoming August, and they said we're in St. Petersburg for 3 days, and we have some pre-planned travel activities with a group, but we have some free time. What would you recommend as the must-see locations? And that's where I struggled the most, is realizing we had so much given to us over the course of 5 months. Yeah. That if I had to pick what parts influenced me the most, that to be visited, that wouldn't be on a trip. That's the challenge part. They said, what part should we see that wouldn't be on our tour? So I knew already that Spas na Krovy, out of the line. They're going to be visiting. They're going to be visiting Kazan Cathedral. They're going to be visiting St. Isaac's. They're going to be visiting
St. Isaac's for sure.
Absolutely.
Kazan Cathedral.
So I had to pick out the little parts, the little bits of art that maybe wouldn't be shown on a grand tour of St. Petersburg in a day or two.
Pushkin Museum, Dostoevsky Museum.
Dostoevsky Museum was one of them that I said, if you have the knowledge of the literature or his, you don't even need to know all the works. Just understanding the contribution is a huge part. What he gave to Russian literature and changed his style,
and then changed the world.
And the way that I would describe his museum the best, it was dark. They kept it very dark inside. All of the exhibits were deep in dark black windows, it would seem, and there were small videos, but there was a haunting image that they kept hanging up on the wall of shadowed faces, each one, not painted in a different light, but shown to be suffering from something.
Notes from the underground man, Brothers Karamazov. Oh my God! Of all
that one.
Were there heavy damask curtains?
They
black.
A lot of
velvet?
The lights were on, but the windows were mostly covered. To be following through, you had to look very hard to see into some of the exhibits, which I thought was incredible.
That's incredible. So, flash me your photo album and tell me how precious that is for you now.
The day I received this as a gift from my parents, and as soon as I opened it, I cried. I'll be honest. I was so
good.
I was so overwhelmed with emotion because this was a life-changing moment for me, and I thought that a lot of it would be washed away in memory or in a digital scene.
And some of it is.
And some of it could be. But having something that I could hold and flip through. And so this is my mom's favorite picture that I took abroad. I took this at Pushkin, I believe, in the winter. So that's one of the palace was where I'd be looking up towards. But they have huge gardens, and in the spring it must be beautiful colors.
It must be.
But this
to
was
look
her
at you
favorite
as
one. So happy.
Such a native St. Petersburger with the
They told us, you know, a lot of people had some beards, and I was like, all right, let's see what I can do. Let's see what I can make happen. She
look at this.
Went through, and this was my mom's. They gave me a warning on the first day. They were like, when you're going out, because we mentioned we were going out to explore the town for the first day, they said, don't make a scene. Don't do anything that'll get yourself noticed in any way. And so naturally, on the first night out, we took a bunch of pictures with a Tommy gun at the Al Capone bar.
Oh no!
Where we were taking pictures to say, hey, it's a cool American-themed bar. And they were like, would you like a gun to use? And we were like, huh? So the bartender reaches up behind the bar, pulls down this Tommy gun, and we're like, oh, is it a replica? He's like, no, we just took the firing pin out. And we're like, cool, real Tommy gun.
Real.
So, and I told my mom the first day, hey, look at this, we got pictures with this gun. And they're like, that doesn't sound like you stayed quiet at all. And I was like, no. But being able to keep all these memories is what it helped me the most. Celebrating Maslenitsa, going to the open air markets. I took that. A lot of them are just funny pictures I took for myself.
So that's Easter?
Oh yeah, no, before Easter. That's
before.
The celebration of Maslenitsa, which is how they celebrate the coming of spring.
Maslenitsa, yeah. The and Pascha, that dessert.
And they burn. They burn effigies to like symbolize the coming of spring. And this was a giant effigy, like 50 feet tall. They were. This was in a huge park in St. Petersburg, but this effigy must have been, 60 feet tall. It took a while to burn.
That's so Russian.
If we're going to be talking about space and the history of it, I mean, in some of the museums, Sputnik, they showed us little bits of history all along the way.
I love this one.
That was the warmest day we'd had in so long, and it was still below freezing.
31 degrees.
I wore my summer jacket and a t-shirt out that day with a hat.
Just to celebrate.
Compared to wearing this.
Yeah.
Which is the normal. Covering your face, making sure you're wearing 2 pairs of gloves, potentially. I had small gloves and then large gloves that I would wear just to be able to stay warm.
So, that's a beauty. So, in 2 years, imagine yourself back, which is very possible. Given your plans, masters, return to Moscow, do the whole thing, or whatever job comes along. You're on your way. What do you want to do with your one precious, adventurous, poetic life when you're back in Russia, in the back roads, sort of? Not the front facade, the Potemkin kind of facade, but the deep spiritual backwoods country and soul that's Ruskaya dusha is part of the soil. Where could you go? What could you do to expand?
To really see it.
Would you take the Trans-Siberian Express to Vladivostok? Could you?
I definitely want to go further into Russia. I saw the postcards. I got to experience the front living. I saw the big stops. I think it's time to dive deeper in. I think I want to expand my connections. I need to meet more friends over there. I've got my few that I love, and they're dear to me, as I said. But
they will stay dear. Yeah, that's the thing about Russians.
It's time to keep going and
yeah,
create more. I think I want to be a connection between the United States and Russia. That's my end goal, is to work and, just make it a better place between the two of us.
That's a beautiful wrap because, back in the early 60s, there was something called the Citizen Exchange Group they were actually having groups of Russians come here and groups of, that's in between Gary Powers and the flap and all that, bad politics. But there's always been this affinity between Russia and the United States, you know. We share revolutions, different kinds of revolutions, but it's just so culturally friendly in a way.
Absolutely.
Can't thank you enough.
Thank you for having me.
For the show and tell, too. And the деньги. Oh my God.
Деньги.
Rubles. I'm rich. 200 rubles.
Solid.
Who's on that? Nobody.
Just pieces of history.
No Jefferson.
Chariots, but yeah, Russia.
So sing us a Kalinka as we...
Kalinka, Kalinka, Kalinka Maya, Sadhu Yagda Malinka, Malinka Maya, Kalinka, Kalinka, Kalinka Maya, Sadhu Yagda Malinka, Malinka Maya.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
What a day. Even better than the first time.
And that's a wrap.
Yep, that's a wrap.
Perfect.